Right. So today we do have a guest coming up, but we're just gonna get
First
to that
guest.
interview. Yeah, first guest ever. That's so cool. I was wondering when that was gonna happen. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I like talking to you, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
It's gonna be a good one though. This one, yeah,
it's
should
a
be.
good one. It's a really
Yeah.
good one. So we will have Alex G coming on. So if you follow Galaxy Brain on Twitter, she's gonna come join us. She's an educator, very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
But so you don't have to get too much into it, but like that, you watched the debates, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
What'd
Yeah.
you think?
I thought. Well, I'm bummed your bet didn't get covered, dude. The fucking
Dude, I want
the
to like why does
yeah.
he never do what
Tell
I
him.
want him to do? Yeah.
Tell him, dude.
So
I know, dude.
I
Yeah.
think I
It's like,
teased to it last episode.
yeah.
So I took Biden calling Trump a clown plus 280. Great odds. And he's
Yeah.
like, dude, they were both so timid, dude. They had the
I
kid
know,
gloves
dude.
on. I mean, like,
They were scared, dude.
yeah, they were scared. Like,
the powers that be were like, yo, guys, like, come on.
puppeteer guy was like, not this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And and like, yeah, they inserted the other alien, Men in Black alien, in Biden's brain. You know what I mean? The one that was like that, the one that wouldn't call him a clown. And I was like, because the way I knew that wasn't going to hit was Trump wasn't super aggressive. So like, if Trump got aggressive, I knew Biden would do it. But I think when they did that, I think the reason the odds were so good is because the debate moderator said they would cut Trump's mic off if he interrupted Biden.
Yeah.
I think that's. Yeah. I fell for the odds trap.
Yeah.
That was what happened.
Anyone who went for a non-solid colored tie to you got fucked, dude. Just lost tons of money on that shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, houses, cars.
Who's paying their mortgage, like taking people's covers and odds on presidential debates? You know, who's
it's
like
definitely some Scandinavian guy or something. Like
someone's
Anders something. Guy with a sailor shirt on.
Anders Bjorgen, dude.
Yeah, Anders Bjorgen. He's building like a IKEA couch in his house, like that type of guy. Like it's definitely somebody like that. I have no idea where that company's from.
Yeah.
In my head, when
so I watched the debate and it was whatever. It was like, well, also, and I don't want to get into this, but like I watched it with some people that were like, you know, like more pro Biden than I.
Blue pill.
So it was interesting to say the least. I was like, you know, I realized how far gone I am, dude, off this kush, dude. But
yeah, don't you feel like a fish out of water? Something like you feel like you're like, I can't even breathe what this is right now. Like my lungs can't handle it. Who am I?
Yeah,
around?
dude. Yeah. And it's like I honestly thought they both kind of did good, you know, in a weird way.
If you were to be like just grading the debate objectively.
Yeah.
No, Biden was solid. He was better than he was last time, I thought.
Yeah, totally.
And,
but I watched the fucking Borat. Let's talk about the Borat film real quick. Just a couple minutes.
For bringing that up because I wanted to. Yeah. What do you mixed bag? No, the joke's funny.
Justin Trudeau, dude. Justin Trudeau set it off, dude.
Justin Trudeau set it off.
Yes, dude.
And then,
so good.
and the thing about it was, and like, you know, stuff with his daughter's really funny. Like, it's great. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet, but
spoiler alert. There you go. There, fucking
sure. But you know, I mean, what is really the story? It's like the story's not even that important. It's just the jokes that you watch it for. But what I found interesting was, one, I was glad to see that it was on Amazon Prime because then I didn't have to pay for it directly. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh shit, this is free on Amazon Prime when I was watching it, and I'm like, oh no, exactly. Yeah, they got like I just forgot how much of a lib he was.
Like, what's that thing when if it's free, then you're the product, right? Basically, you know, someone's buying you kind of thing. Oh yeah, like, you know, like if a tech thing is free, like you're the one that's being sold, basically. You know,
is that like an economics teacher thing? Like an economics teacher, like there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, no, it was. I know, dude, and it was weird because they focused. My gripe was that they focused way too much on like the story rather than like the bits.
You're right, and it wasn't like that documentary style. It was kind of like actually filmed. You know what I mean? Like if Jackass did that, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. And the bits weren't even that good. Like it wasn't even like the cringe factor wasn't as crazy as it could have been. It was drawn out. And the thing is, like, there were some funny moments, like definitely the ball, you know, the formal event was funny. I thought that was funny.
Great.
the QAnon COVID bros were. I thought they were funny,
Dude,
dude. I was like,
I would legit kick it at that
I
pad,
was
dude.
like,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
when they were like, what's worse, the Democrats or COVID? I was like, well,
Yeah,
that was
oh,
funny.
I know.
But
But you know what? You know,
and
it's
then the ending, dude, and then the fucking. Well,
no,
go on.
no.
Yeah,
The ending is. I won't even get
yeah,
into the ending because it's like blue pill to the max. But with the QAnon guys or the things like that, I did in my back of my head. I thought it was very funny. But in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, they're doing this to where if you criticize the Clintons, you're this.
yeah,
That's
totally,
like it's totally that like guilt
totally,
by association. It's like, oh, you have that opinion. We always talk about the forced takes and stuff.
exactly, dude.
Like, you have that opinion. Well, you're gonna be living in the log. First off, dude's rock. Okay, that pad was sick, dude.
Yeah, it was
Like
pimping, dude.
like
Yeah, it
a
was.
log cabin, dude. And the guy, did you see the
Yeah,
guy when he's like sitting back, like having beers and like Cheetos and just reading Biden articles, like on
yeah, dude.
on like the Daily Wire or whatever.
I
Like,
love watching. Maybe that's like a weird like thing of mine. I love watching like people like that, like backcountry Southerners, like on the internet. It's like funny as a thing to me. I don't know. It's just like I love it, dude.
yeah,
Where they're looking up QAnon shit. But yeah,
yeah.
dude. Yeah, exactly. No, I thought that too. In fact, the audience I was with discussed that. They're like, wait, is Clinton good or bad? And I'm like, I didn't say shit. I was just like, come on,
A
guys. I
can
was
of
like,
worms. Yeah, sometimes you
yeah,
gotta like,
dude.
hey, do I want to ruin the night or do I?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But but yeah, dude, it was interesting. Yeah, he's just ultra lib. Who was America was genius because it was
It was
full
good.
spectrum across the board, dude. It was like they had the Portland guy, they had the
Criticize Israel. Yeah,
Israel,
yeah.
they had all of it. With this, it was just like like it's like okay, like we've heard all this before, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever
And
though. Yeah,
and like no, and like I said, I actually enjoyed it. Like I gotta say, like I thought it was a good watch. Like I
yeah,
it's tough for me to like, just given how the climate and all that stuff, it's tough to just sit down and objectively just enjoy something without seeing a
yeah,
narrative behind it, which that's kind of more of like a me problem, probably, honestly. But like, and let's be real, the original Borat was super political too.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
an
totally.
anti-Bush narrative too. We were just young when it came out. We didn't care,
Yeah.
and like, you know what I mean. So
Hmm.
like they were he didn't make one during the Obama administration. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. But the
it's
thing that I don't know, for me the Pence and Giuliani bits didn't hit as hard as
no.
I thought they were going
I was
to.
disappointed by
I was waiting. I was
yeah.
like, and it was like all right, but I was like, I thought it was gonna be some fire shit, and it was like
I knew the
whatever,
Pence one wasn't fire because we would have heard about that because that was at the
Yeah.
beginning of when he was talking about like the code. He's like, there's about like 12 cases in code. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was like, oh wait, no, I would have seen this.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
would have leaked. Like,
Yeah.
we're online enough to where we would have seen that. And the Giuliani one, I was like, I knew in the back of my head, I was like, the liberals are gonna run with this like it's something crazy, even though
Yeah.
like he's okay. Yes, he's a perv. Like, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
news today.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. And then like now I get promoting your movie. I 1000% get promoting your movie. I understand that you're gonna like go at Trump, and then Trump will tweet about it, which he did. Trump called him a creep. Sasha Beta Cohen, and he called him a creep. And then like, what did Borat say? Let me pull up the thing. Like, Sasha Baron Cohen said something to him
Yeah.
about like he did one of those like basically like Krasenstein like Brooklyn dad like reply guy things to him, and it just like
Yeah.
I thought like I knew he was like super lived out, but I thought he was like more original than that in his
Yeah.
critique of like this. And it's like,
No, dude, it's him being himself is whack, dude.
yeah, I wouldn't kick it
Yeah.
with him. I would kick it with okay. Power rank
Bruno.
power
Bruno.
Bruno number one. You're kicking it with?
Yeah.
I'm okay.
By far, dude.
I got
Yeah.
Ali G personally. Like
Yeah.
I would kick with Ali G. Bruno's cool. The French racing guy from Talladega Nights slaps.
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Or what about no, I fuck Aron Morad is he's the
Let's
goat
go.
too.
Let's
And
go.
what's the professor's name? The Portland professor.
Oh,
Uh
yeah, the super beta dude.
oh
God, I don't
Niall
remember his
Kane
name.
D'Angelo or
Yes,
some shit like
that
yeah.
honestly
Yeah.
maybe number one. Yeah,
Dude, he's the
like that
best, dude.
that
That
one's really
rap
good.
battle was like I was dying, dude. That was so funny, dude.
So good.
He is
Yeah.
hella good at coming up with songs and
No,
raps on the fly, dude.
he's
It's
great,
crazy,
and
dude.
it's
Yeah.
just like I almost wish this didn't come out in an election year.
Yeah.
I
But
almost wish.
the
Yeah.
other thing, did you see that video of him giving like the serious speech about like Facebook and shit? Did you see that shit? It's kind of making the rounds. It's like him, Sasha Baron Cohen, being like, kind of giving this like the serious ass speech about like how his he's basically like and like whatever, you know. But his thing was basically like, no, like we need to like preemptively screen Facebook posts so that like misinformation doesn't go on. Dude, it was bad, dude. It was like,
When are we ever gonna leave this up to like it's your fault if you fall for some dumb shit?
yeah,
When are
dude,
we ever
yeah,
like I understand like that's my thing with like libertarianism. There are aspects of libertarianism I like, and that's one of them. It's like
yeah,
I first off, I love shitty articles. I don't just
yeah,
personally for me, like I'm like, oh, what is this? You know what I mean? Like
hmm,
I love the like I remember my grandpa back in the day, he's like a super conservative, like old guy that basically would fall for anything on Facebook. And it was like Illinois burqa ban goes down on vote. And he's like, he'll like tag his friend in Illinois, like, John Johnson, is this true? Like, you know what I
yeah, yeah,
mean? And it's like not real. It was never up for a vote or anything. I love that. Don't take
yeah,
that from me. I don't,
yeah.
it's not, is it really influencing votes? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you
I
already
mean,
leaned that way, you might believe it.
yeah, it's a kind of chicken and egg thing, right? Yeah, it's definitely,
God.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So he was saying
And
that. What is that? What he was saying? He was saying like we can't allow just anything posted on the internet.
no, well, he was just saying, yeah, he was going after Facebook and Zuckerberg, and the thing is, he's not wrong. He's saying like, look, he's basically saying like, look, they don't care about the truth or not or free speech. They just want to make money, which is true. He's like Zuckerberg doesn't care if like if something. It's like Zuckerberg doesn't care about free
It's
speech.
a
He's
business.
exactly, yeah, which is true. But his whole thing is like we need to like scrub it clean so people aren't brainwashed by like conspiracy theories that only a few decades ago were completely like on the fringe and now they're mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, bro, and I was like, oh, again, that's already. It's funny coming from him, someone who his whole career is based on like bucking the status quo narrative and kind of like digging his way in there
He's
and
a
I don't know, man.
genius method actor.
Yeah,
Like
dude.
there's no like
Yeah,
just all the disguises and all that kind of like he's so good at it. Like
yeah,
and it's just weird, man. Like I'm not like I used to hate when people are like, "Hey, keep politics out of it," but I'm like, "Damn, man, maybe we should just keep politics out." Like I'm starting to
yeah,
become like a sticks to sports bro, or like a like I just
yeah,
like I'm like it's like what is that Occam's razor when they say like you used to be that way and then you like
yeah,
went down another route and then you're like, "Nah, I'm that." And like
yeah,
that's been what 2020 has been for me is like a Occam's razor thing where I'm just like, "Oh, like when I was young, like fuck all that like PC culture shit and all that kind of stuff. And then like when I got like into college and a little bit older, I was like, no, this is right. We need to like wipe
yeah,
free of hate speech and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm like, man, fuck this.
yeah,
Like, you know what I mean?
yeah, dude, yeah,
Like it just that's not gonna work. So
yeah.
it's like it almost is like that. And
I think
I
it's
don't
a
know.
point of maturity when you realize you can't control every fucking moving part in the universe, let alone on planet Earth, and like you just gotta, you just gotta. I don't know, man. And the whole thing
You have to
is
be an
like, yeah, we're
adult. You have to be an adult. That's the way I look at it. Like
yeah,
fucking grow up. That's I don't know. I like if you can't handle misinformation, like you'll fall for like manufactured misinformation that's
yeah,
given to you from CNN. Like you will. It's manufactured
yep, yep.
consent. Like it's just
And also,
it.
no, come on, like what's no one's win rate is no one's win rate's gonna be fucking 100%. You know what I mean?
No.
It's no one's, and it's and uh and to get the good shit, to get on the cutting edge of information, you're gonna have to be willing to be wrong, and that's why the mainstream exists to question it and bucket and everything. And it's yeah, dude. It's but yeah, you're just gonna fall for that CNN stuff. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I don't want to prolong this any longer, but
yeah.
I think we
Let's
should
get
get
to
to
it.
the interview. No, it was a great interview. Again, thank you for Alex G at Galaxy Brain for checking it out. Check out in the liner notes. I'm going to put in the episode the articles we referenced to, the article that she wrote on virtual learning and during the pandemic, and I'll put her Twitter handle in there as well. Please, I think a lot of you probably do follow, honestly, like some of you that follow this podcast and stuff. She definitely is in that sort of Twitter circle and stuff. But yeah, let's get to that interview.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, welcome to Rare Candy. This is like the first time we've done like a real intro because we have our first guest today. First guest ever. The echo chamber is broken. And her name is Alex, and she is at Galaxy Brain, but Galaxy is with an Alex mixed in there. So
Great
yeah,
username.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming on. And you are an educator, correct?
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
No,
Yeah,
no
no problem.
problem. No
Yeah.
problem. So, the reason that we reached out to you is because you wrote a piece in the Bellows, right? Do I have that correct? The Bellows.
Yeah.
And it really, I'll put it this way: I'm not much of a reader, so I was able to read this, and I got through it, and it was very well written. But it was like there's some really good stuff, and coming from an educator's perspective, it wasn't something I was really like expecting from like a teacher. You know what I mean? So, what prompted you to write this?
Well, I'm a teacher in public schools, and I've always taught in low income public schools. And what really prompted me to write it was, I think that a lot of the shutdown policies around schools and keeping schools closed is going to have a devastating impact on low income communities and the students from those communities. And I think most of it is being done not for safety or protection, but for corporate profit
Wow.
and at the behest of Silicon Valley rather than
Mhm.
anything else.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
what was your journey through? Because we're all going through this together. We've never been through anything like this, really. Uh, did you always feel this way, or was it like a slow progression, like month by month, like March, April, May? You know, how did it progress for you?
That's a good question. So I think right when everything started with the pandemic, um, I was still a union rep at that time, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, we should definitely close schools. We had to vote on it. I mean, our vote didn't mean anything. It was a symbolic vote, but I was, on messaging people, please vote on this so we can close the schools. And then maybe the next week, I kind of started to rethink that, because it became clear that it wasn't going to be a 2-week thing to let hospitals and healthcare get ahead of the pandemic. It became clear that it was going to be indefinite, and that wasn't really what was sold in the beginning. So after that, I sort of when in California, Gavin Newsom announced that schools were going to be closed for the rest of the year. That was, I think, at some point in April, and that was when it kind of shifted for me. And then at that point, it's kind of hard to remember now, but at that point, it really felt like you couldn't tell anybody if you had doubts, or you couldn't express, even to close friends and stuff, skepticism around the policy. But over the summer, I've tried to do more research into the data and do more research into the impacts of the policies. And that changed my thinking a lot.
Yeah. That, and I was going to ask you that, like, as far as with your colleagues, did you have to walk on eggshells to even just, or like, almost be like, hey, this is kind of, this is a bit much. Did you have to do that? Or were there a couple of your colleagues that are like, yeah, no, I agree?
I have some colleagues. I don't go into long, detailed thoughts about it with colleagues, but in terms of the day-to-day policy, especially around kids from certain vulnerable populations, like the special education population, or newcomers, I think there are people who agree. I've definitely spoken to people who agree that there should be provisions for them to come back safely sooner, such as expanding PPE, hiring more staff to make sure you have smaller class sizes, stuff like that. I think people are more on board for that than it might seem.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are kind of self-censoring right now, and I was kind of tripping on that myself in my own life. There's definitely people in my family that take this way more serious than others, and but when I was listening to I always butcher his last name, but Dr. J from Stanford,
Jay Bhattacharya.
yeah, there you go. And I've, I don't know, I think he's got some good takes on this whole thing, but hearing him say, even him at Stanford, he has to walk in eggshells, and it's like a huge rift even between all these professionals that are, that have been doing this for years. Kind of was like, oh, we're all going through this together, and none of us really know what's going on. And so that was a big wake up call for me. And who's the John Ioannidis, right? Is the doctor who who was just published recently, even though they've censored him forever throughout this whole pandemic, and he turned out to be correct, of course. And just saying that, that this lockdown is probably not as effective as we hope it would be, and that it might not be as necessary as we claim it to be. And on top of that, of course, like we always talk about economics, and we learn a certain way economically, that you can't do something like this, even if it's well intended, and you don't have the social support, which I think is what you're alluding to in your article about the technology and the food programs and everything, like with low income kids. It's just going to be a disaster no matter how you slice it, even if you are trying to save people's lives, right? And the fact that we can't talk about that's very dangerous. So yeah, I was very pleased to read you write on your writing on that. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I agree. And I think that since I wrote the article, there's been more information come out from schools, because they are tracking for schools in the US that have been open, what are the infection rates for staff and for students. And it was something like 0.13% for students and 0.24 for staff. So low. And it's also, since then there was also, I think, been more conversations and articles come out about schools opening too in various publications, where I think some of the thinking and consensus around it is shifting because of the economic impact and long-term health impact it's going to have on kids. But the policy, especially in California, is really slow moving to change. Yeah, well, it was definitely interesting also in the spring to see people dismiss the idea that you should care about the economic impact of policies as something that only billionaires would care about.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a self-proclaimed materialist, that seems kind of important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So get as far as the lunches, because that was one thing I never understood. Well, I don't have kids, he doesn't have kids, and so I haven't been in school since Obama was president, so I don't really look at this that much. But there are a lot of children and parents of children that depend on it for childcare and food.
Yeah.
So like, what has that been like in your experience? Have you had not complaints, but people come to you like, look, I cannot do this at home thing?
Well, they're still doing, it's different in each district how frequently they're doing school meals, but they are still giving out food. There are for low-income schools, a lot of them are in a community schools model where you have health clinics attached to the school. You have counseling and therapy services are coordinated through the school, and things like glasses screenings, dental screenings, those things get coordinated through the school. So a lot of students who get a lot of health coverage through schools for low-income kids who go to community model schools. And I think it's really mixed for parents because they're scared. And I think there's a really wide variety of thought on it. Even people in really dire situations can be scared sometimes. So it's very mixed.
Right. Yeah. You got something you want to ask?
Well, you focus on the economic thing, or more on the corporate side of things, on how, like, I knew that this was going to be a disaster economically, and I think it did throw a curveball for the left, of which Glenn and I consider ourselves to be on the left. But you had the tweet about, and we don't have to get into this, but about Chapo Trap House, about how they're pro lockdown and kind of pro, they're kind of like they took the fearmonger side of things, right? I think a lot of people on the left almost did this because it proves our point that how fucked up everything is and how our world is crumbling. Not that we need proof of that, but we shouldn't gain pleasure in like everyday people getting kicked out of a job or losing their income. And everyone was making fun of the MAGA bros for, like, they just want to get their hair cut. It's like, well, maybe that hairdresser wants to eat and pay their rent too. It's one of those things. And so, I mean, and of course this leads in discussion, like maybe we should socialize, and just give everyone UBI, and there's all sorts of different avenues that can go down. But yeah, you brought up the key point that this is actually funneling resources and giant profits and money into corporations and CEOs, specifically tech corporations in Silicon Valley, and that's what I really hadn't pinned down in my own
No,
thinking,
yeah,
and
and I
you
live
put it
there.
down.
Yeah, I live there,
Yeah,
and I didn't even. Yeah,
and it was a light bulb moment for me that this is a very technocratic kind of push for all this whole shift.
Yeah, well, I think that when we closed in March, April, May in California, all of the tech platform subscriptions were free. So you could sign up for different platforms for kids to use at home. And then in the fall, it became that the districts had to pay for it. So we already like set up on these different services. And I think that's been the model that some like Google has used for a long time, is to
It's like
donate.
a trial run kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a long time, Google's been giving schools Chromebooks, giving whole districts
yeah,
Chromebooks, and they've been really successful of getting everybody hooked on Google Docs, Google Classroom, Google Drive, so that kids are trained to use those programs. They'll be using them for the rest of their lives or know how to use them. Teachers teach through those programs. So if you're coming up in a young teacher training as a teacher, you're learning how to teach on computers, teaching online. So I think that they've been very successful in changing the model of education to suit the tech world.
Yeah, it's a closed ecosystem, closed
yeah.
loop. And you're talking
Yeah.
about the Zoom profits, like 12 billion, right, made during this thing, and
Yeah.
it's
I mean, the whole thing
yeah.
is, I don't know if this is an updated number, but I think in September it was that billionaires had made 845 billion
I
since the
think
pandemic
we're up to
started.
890. I think we're almost up to 890 now.
Okay.
So, yeah, that
So,
stock is. Yeah, that stock is. Yeah, you can
yeah,
still buy it.
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah,
It's almost
no,
like the stock market it's always been kind of a pseudo indicator of the economy, but now it's like the stock market's not even allowed to dip below a certain level. It's not even allowed by whoever decides that, the
Yeah.
ruling class and the Fed and everything. And it's yeah, that shall not be. Everything else, all productivity can go through the roof, wages can go way down, doesn't even matter, as long as the market is pumping out numbers. It hit all-time highs during the pandemic, and I'm a trader. I don't really trade stocks, I do other stuff, but so it's funny to me, I see how it's all bullshit basically, but yeah, what a trip. Yeah. And
yeah.
yeah, so go ahead.
And so as far as it goes with like Zoom, you had tweeted about it. I saw it the other day, and you kind of mentioned it in here, and it's almost like the privacy aspect of like Zoom and stuff, and like we're not allowed to like be at home anymore, even though we're like forced to stay at home. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's
Like,
there's no
Yeah.
private life because
yeah,
it's
okay.
all work life. Yeah.
Yeah, and even I even saw you like say something about the guy who got caught doing things on Zoom the other day. Yeah, I'm not saying you were like
Yeah.
making an excuse, but like it was a kind of an interesting point because I didn't think about it. It's
Actually,
weird. Like,
yeah, we have the same take on our last pod. We were talking about how this is like inevitable. This shit's gonna happen.
yeah.
Like
So
when you allow everyone into your living room,
yeah,
and yeah.
what are
And
you noticing with that? With like just nobody like look, I remember you used to be able to see your teacher at like the store, and you're like, what? Like my teacher's at the store, like, oh, please don't let her see me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Oh
then
God. Yeah.
all of a sudden, like now it's like, nah, my teacher sees this behind me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
my teacher sees what I have in my room. Teacher sees me eating.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, what do you?
Oh yeah, the
what do you make of
eating
it?
on Zoom is out of control. It's
Yeah,
always eating,
Yeah.
I
lying
would
in
do.
bed.
Yeah, just something,
Yeah.
or like share your screen. What do you do? What else are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's. So what do you like? What do you think this is doing? Like for kids, like who already are kind of becoming desocialized because of just how we are. We kind of like we type more than we like talk to each other and stuff like that. Like what are you seeing as far as all that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think it will have to play out over a long period of time, and it also kind of depends how long this lasts for them. I think that some kids are going to have to relearn certain social skills if they do go back in person, if and when. And I think that for some kids, I think it is a hard experience to have to be on Zoom learning if you're at a table with all your siblings and there's different teachers coming out of Zoom giving instructions, and your parent is trying to help you coordinate with 4 different kids and doing 4 different lessons in one small room, I think it's pretty overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, me? Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask, and we don't have to stay on this topic too long, but just politically with this election going on and how this is utilized, and you talked about Biden calling Trump the king of lockdowns and how it's already being flipped, the narrative's already being shifted,
Yeah.
and how, this isn't, and I've I think we should be less I personally can't stand Trump, didn't vote for him or whatever, but I think we're far too harsh on him and less harsh on like the governors and the people doing,
Yes.
Gavin Newsom and Cuomo and stuff. And it's just becoming a total liberal, fuel for this crazy fire we have going on. And yeah, how they're already starting to backpedal on this. And I think if Biden wins, it'll immediately get flipped around basically with this whole narrative on COVID. And we could talk numbers on we've talked about that on this pod before on what this disease actually is, how it actually hurts people, and how it on every level it's less than what we thought it was, and I know that's a controversial statement, but I would swear by it, based on what I've seen, and every projection has been wrong and everything. And not saying we shouldn't take it seriously, we shouldn't have locked down for a few weeks or something, but I don't know if you want to elaborate on the political angle a little bit. We usually bring that up, once in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there will be more people backtracking from lockdown policies. And I think I used to think more if Biden wins, then it will end. But now I'm not so sure, because I think that things in California, things are more closed, I guess, than other states.
Oh, yeah.
So in other states, I think you're seeing the things reopen, and but there's still not an economic revival necessarily happening in a lot of places. So I think that we're gonna still be dealing with certain pandemic culture, and the consequences more than the actual enforcement of the policy. So even if Biden wins, I feel like this is not going away, if that makes sense.
Totally.
No, it does. I was of that same thinking. Like, I was kind of like, this is so politicized already off the bat, right? Like, it was already so politicized. So I figured by the time he's inaugurated, it would be like another 3-month crash course on this stuff, like, pedal to the metal, and then, we beat it, folks. I was kind of thinking that was going to happen, but you might be right. Especially like the thing is like, I'm a California native, Bay Area native, and the same thing. It's like everybody here has just like fully embraced it. You know what I mean? And like, masks have become the commodity. You have, things written on your mask and all that kind of vote on your mask. And it's so dystopian. And you talk about like, I think it's related to Proposition 15 in here, right? Like, I've seen a lot of people that are like, yeah, we gotta get that has to pass, right? Like that has to get, we have to get this funding from these billionaires and all that stuff. And while maybe the small business side might oppose it or something, but you had kind of an interesting take on Proposition 15, and I kind of wanted to hear it, like about all the billionaires that are like behind it almost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against Prop 15. I'm still not really sure how I feel about it. I collected signatures for Prop 15.
Explain it real fast. I'm sorry.
Can you explain it to me like someone what it was? Like I don't even know too much about it.
I was leaning on you there. I was like,
yeah.
Prop 13 passed in the 70s. I think it was enacted maybe 1978, and that kind of Prop 13 overnight changed the California funding of education. I think it cut the budget by maybe a third or something crazy, where California was one of the highest states for funding for education and then became one of the lowest. And we're still maybe bottom 10 adjusted for cost of living, and definitely below the national average for money per kid spent. So Prop 15 decreased property taxes to the 1976 value and restricted the amount it could increase. So a lot of homeowners are who've had their property for a long time are paying not 2020 values on property, but
Right.
yeah. So value from previous years on property. And it applied not just to residential property, but also to commercial property. So Prop 15 is aimed to close the loophole for commercial property. So it would make it so that large industrial properties have to pay their current property tax value as the property is assessed for the current year, not the values they've been paying from the 70s. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and that's a huge
So
difference. Yeah,
it
it's
would,
like,
yeah, so it's a
out
lot of,
here it's
I think
crazy.
it's like going to be $12 billion, and majority of it will be paid by these big properties like Disney, Chevron, and some of it will be paid by smaller commercial properties. Small business is exempt because the property has to be worth more than $3 million. And I think the strange thing about this prop is that there's a lot of money on both sides. So the Yes campaign has a lot of money from the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation.
Yeah.
Every single Democratic primary candidate has like endorsed this campaign, including really random people like
Bloomberg. I'm looking at right now. There he is.
And then on the other side, you have business owners, and they've kind of mobilized small business owners to be against Prop 15. Some of it somewhat cynically, but I think the Yes campaign on Prop 15 hasn't really given an answer to small business owners who rent their space on commercial property, where their lease specifies that they will have to pay any increased property tax, which some small businesses lease do specify. And also, it's very possible that these commercial properties could just sell their space to avoid having to pay the taxes. So I think
that's where it's going. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the fear for some small business owners. That's not really my main concern. But I think just want to acknowledge that's where most of the conversation around Prop 15 has been, on the no side. Then if you're looking at companies like Disney or Chevron or IBM, I think you're also going to see major downsizing if Prop 15 passes, which it most likely will. And Disneyland/Disney World has already fired 28,000 people or something because of the pandemic closures. So I think it's also very possible that those big properties will fire people, and it's not actually necessarily going to be the rich, because the slogan of Schools and Communities First Prop 15 is tax the rich. I don't necessarily know if this loss is going to fall to the rich in the end. But then my biggest concern is around the charter school issue, where I was collecting signatures for Prop 15 and no one told me that it was also going to fund charter schools. So if you look at the assault on public education, charter schools and privatization is one of the main problems, if not the main problem. So it feels a little bit strange to be trying to negotiate for this extra funding back that should have been there already in the first place. But at the same time, we're going to get this funding back and also have to give funding to charters at the same time. So
yeah,
I think it's really complicated and it's mixed. At the same time, I wouldn't necessarily tell anyone to vote no on it or that they shouldn't vote for school funding, because Prop 13 is infamously been terrible for the state.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. Oh, well said. No, I agree. And yeah, I'm sorry. Did you have one you wanted?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. And then like I'm always fascinated by this because I've always, as like a leftist, I'm kind of not new to it. Like I grew up super liberal and stuff, but I really started realizing, especially living in the Bay Area, you're like, this is dystopian. Like I am an independent like contractor. I've worked all these independent contractor jobs for huge tech companies where they're just like, they're making us work in like slaughterhouses with like pig matter stuck in the drains, not to get too graphic here, but just things like that where, and when we tried to get anything good, you know, you always hear the story of like Amazon workers wanting air conditioning and they come out in with popsicles and stuff like that. But the answer to that is always union, right? Like that's always what you're told, you unionize. But You have a really interesting narrative on the teachers union, like as a controlled opposition. Did you want to expand on that a little bit?
Ooh.
Yeah, so I say this because I just want to preface this by saying I was a union rep for 3 years.
Right.
I was a rep when we went on strike in my district, so I've been very involved with the union. And one thing I would just criticize about the California Teachers Union is that it's almost a stereotype of a corrupt bureaucratic union,
Right.
where you have in first year teachers making $45,000 a year, or sometimes less in some districts, and you have the union leadership making 6-figure salaries, or even more sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the California Teachers Union and which is called California Teachers Association,
Mm-hmm.
and the National Educators Association are super in bed with the Democratic Party and have put tons of money into campaigns and ballot initiatives and PACs that end up funding the Democratic Party or Democratic Party's interests, and that are not always necessarily aligned directly with things that are going to improve working conditions and wages for teachers. So I think in that situation, being pro-labor or pro-union doesn't necessarily mean following party line on what the large union wants to do. It sometimes means being critical of what they're doing, especially in the context we have now, where they're supporting a situation that's clear tech dystopia and is removing basic social services for vulnerable people, and also potentially going to lead to the obsolescence of our very profession as more and more moves online. And I know that sounds kind of extreme, but the materials I see as a teacher will be things like Modern Classrooms Project, where they'll put in the materials that the best classroom is one where you basically don't see the teacher at all, and that everything just functions on its own online.
Yeah. And I can't help but get conspiratorial, but that this is something the technocrats have been pushing for about a decade now, at least, and with Bill Gates and everything, and they have been pushing this model. And then they, I'm not saying anything here. I'm just saying this was all pre-paved, it seems. And then this virus happens, and we reacted.
It was the right opportunity.
It was the right opportunity. It was like,
Yeah.
it was like kindling into a fire. It just sparked and took off. And they had all this waiting in the wings. I'm not making any claim that this was like created or whatever, put out by anyone like COVID, but this was pre-planned. The response to this and the timing was right, basically. And it's just, I don't understand the teachers' response to this. It's been very confusing to me. And also just the notion of who's essential and who's not, and who do we protect and who don't we protect.
Yeah.
And my big thing is like daycare workers, right, are seen as totally disposable.
Yeah.
Yet teachers are the ultimate heroes. And I do respect teachers. I respect you and everything. But just that they're just so pearl clutching over the notion that they might have to go into work and teach, but everyone's sending their kids to daycare. This virus is, if the virus is serious, it is being spread.
It would have wiped out the daycares the same way it did the nursing homes. Yeah,
100% more probably.
I mean, it's a way to shift. I mean, they're shifting risk away from themselves and acting like they're doing God's work when they're just moving risk onto lower paid workers, onto workers who don't have union protection.
Yeah.
I mean, there's there will be daycare workers and other workers who are not certified teachers, like paraprofessionals or private in-home services starting for some kids at this point. And the teachers union attitude is like, oh, well, maybe it's safe for them, but it's still not safe for teachers.
Yeah. We must protect the teachers.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things, like the penguin. The daycare is like the penguin they push in to see if there's sharks. Like, let's see how the daycares go, and then we'll see. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
They should be negotiating things to do for older teachers or immunocompromised teachers or people who live with immunocompromised family, stuff like that. But the blanket, we're just not going in. No one can go in until everyone can go in. Sort of zero COVID policy is, if I wasn't a teacher, I would not have a high opinion of it. And having community support is really important for a labor organization.
Yes.
Because if you lose that, then you lose a lot of leverage.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's well, that's well said. I just wanted to before we wrap up, I think I've kept you a little longer than I said. I apologize, but
no, I'm free. Don't worry about it.
Well, in that case, no. But anyways, I saw you tweet about this because I think we're from kind of the same area for a while. Because I see you tweet a lot, like some KTVU stuff, like PG&E stuff. So I'm always like, okay, like, you know, I mean, I think we kind of see some of the same things. But you write about it in your piece, right? Like kind of this woke stance, right? Like COVID fear combined with like a woke stance to kind of justify the measures that they're taking. And then you see things on KTVU says the Karen Act. I know I saw you tweet about the Karen Act and all that kind of stuff. Like, what do you, we're very critical of this stuff. We've gone on like another podcast where like a guy was like, how can you hate like woke stuff? And he lives in like Alabama. Right. And so he's just like, yo, like we're not woke. Like I want that. And I'm like, that's fine. We just have different enemies that kind of want the same thing, you know? And so when you see all this stuff in like the Bay Area, just this stuff that doesn't really come with anything material and it's just like kind of has a woke aesthetic to it. What do you think?
I think specifically with the school closures, I think that there's narratives emerging around school being a sort of an inherently oppressive place for certain populations. And that means that it's better for kids to not be in school or better for them to be online. You can find a lot of articles about that. And I think that's very much a step back. And it's very unfortunate that identity is being used to justify that, because a lot of the improvements that have been made for people in terms of access to education were not that long ago and very hard fought. And those, I think I think that one thing that's happening is that there's going to be a long-term shift to having affluent people work at home and low-income people not have access to employment more and more. Yeah. And if there's sort of an anti-racism framework being used to justify that, to say, well, kids shouldn't be in school because school is racist. Nice. And then the next step is going to be they shouldn't be working because work is racist.
You should be at home poor. Because that's not racist. Well, infrastructurally, we can't get to you there.
So I think there were a lot of problems before this, because there was sort of a lot of like meritocracy narratives that were not true and that created their own issues. But this is worse because the abandonment for any kind of left project of the essential function of education in ensuring reproduction of anything worthwhile is very scary and sad to me.
No, 100%. And did you have another question for her?
No, I might have a final question, but go ahead.
Well, I'm about out of questions myself, so go ahead, man.
Yeah, well, you're probably much more eloquent than I, and I was just, if you had to give like an elevator pitch to the type of person that would listen to this and be like, what are they talking about? Like they're against lockdowns, they're against, they don't.
White.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What would you say, if you could say in like a paragraph or something or longer, I know that's a tough
MLA,
That's
tough
hard,
one,
yeah.
MLA form, please.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess I would say that lockdowns were supposed to be about letting hospitals and the
Yes.
healthcare world get ahead of the pandemic. And if there's something to be done about the pandemic, it should be around improving access to healthcare.
Yes.
It should be around preventative measures that don't involve a full shutdown of the society, and that there's going to be years of lost life for many people because of the negative impact on the economy and also on social interaction, which is necessary for health. So I think that it's really difficult to accept, but we have to look at what's happening right now in terms of the economy, in terms of labor relations, in terms of which industries are becoming more dominant and which industries are dying, not in terms of a disease and not blame everything on a disease or on a virus, but look at it as its own process separate from the virus.
Nice.
Because ultimately, not all of this is caused by a virus. This is about our approach to the virus, and it's not effective. And if we were in an extremely deadly pandemic, more deadly than COVID-19, this wouldn't be acceptable anyway, because this would still be causing way more issues down the line, and it wouldn't be giving people what they need, which is access to healthcare.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that would be my elevator pitch.
That's great. Yeah.
So I guess the last question I have, and thank you so much. It's been great. Like this is one area we have not touched on. We've been doing, no joke, like a bunch of episodes since March, and we've talked about the lockdown from everything. I work out in the road, so like I talk about stuff out there about just people driving by. If you're not wearing a mask with nobody standing within 100 feet from you, like that's kind of stuff I'm like we're talking about. We joke, but we haven't touched on schools. Like you know what I mean, we just haven't done that. But okay, let's say, and this is extreme hypothetical, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine. But like, if I say, okay, Alex, you can open up schools tomorrow, how do you do it? I mean, and you have to kind of make parents somewhat, happy.
Okay, well, I think this isn't necessarily what I think based on the data, because I think the data is more optimistic than this. But to make people comfortable, I would just do a massive hiring initiative. If I had unlimited money, that's what I would be spending the money on.
Which you could technically, right? Yeah, I mean, they're saying they're withholding all this money from schools, so you could.
Because class sizes are already too big.
Yes.
So I think it should go to hiring teachers, and then if we're in California, we have good weather, we can do class outside. So I would coordinate with parks and other public spaces. If school spaces are not big enough, buy tents for when it rains, stuff like that. But I think the safety measure that would be the most effective is to make people comfortable would mean hiring teachers, and that's why that's never going to happen, because they're never going to spend money on teachers. And that kind of goes back to the Prop 15 thing for me, where again, I'm not saying that people shouldn't vote yes on Prop 15, but I'm very skeptical that the money will end up in the hands of schools and kids and teachers, because I saw some crazy statistic the other day that was like, kid population at school has increased 7% in the past few decades. Teacher population has increased 8%. And administrator population and central office population has increased, 30% or something much bigger. Where I think that the thing that would help almost every problem in education would be hiring staff. Yeah. Every problem, including the pandemic, would be hiring staff. And one thing that it gets spent on more and more is just 6-figure salaries in central offices and people's pet projects in central offices.
It's bureaucracy, yeah. No, 1,000%.
Yeah, exactly.
What's an ideal class size, like during this time, do you think?
I don't.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to say because I'm also being more. This is more restrictive than what I actually think, but
smart.
you could cut them in half.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't think about the outdoor school. That'd be kind of cool, actually. Like, I was just thinking about like I probably would have
It
enjoyed
would
that
totally change the whole, from going in, or you're already stuffed in a room learning
with
in
bad
regular school.
infrastructure. Yeah.
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 And then you're at home in your bedroom on Zoom, and just being outside would be a total energetic shift, of learning. And
Well,
it'd be,
historically, I think that they did do outside classes in some cities in the 1918 influenza pandemic. And
Mm.
oh,
also they did the same thing in I think, tuberculosis outbreak. But now in 2020, we can't we're not able to organize things like that.
For a virus that
yeah.
isn't killing as many people. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that's
Isn't that
nuts.
funny? That's the funniest thing to me, that this lockdown and pandemic couldn't have happened any other way without the tech that we have and everything and the interconnectedness. But somehow we're more polarized than ever before. And not to be trite or cliche, but that we can't organize for some reason. Like, we have all these tools at our disposal, and we just can't get the spiritual will to kind of get together and organize and do this stuff. It's kind of a weird, it's like a little cosmic joke almost to me. I don't know. And I don't think it'll
Yeah.
always be that way. I think we will graduate past it, but something's weird about that. I don't know what it is. I haven't thought about it too much, but
Well,
yeah.
also in terms of labor organizing, it's
Yeah.
really hard when you can't really talk to each other and there's no
Yeah.
networks of getting that stuff done. It's all
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, did you have any questions for us? You don't have to. I just
I guess my question would be, what do you think about opening schools? Do you think that that would be feasible, or
Yeah.
what would you, the same question you asked me, how would I reopen schools? What would you do?
Go ahead, you first.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those people. I'm sure we're all the same here. I hate the way school is done pre-pandemic even, and I think the whole thing should have been overhauled anyway. So it's almost like this would be a perfect opportunity to do that. And yeah, absolutely less. It's funny. This all got pushed into the home, and I'm one of those big, like, I don't think homework is the best thing, for kids in general, especially a lot of busy work and stuff like that, like practice for skills and things like that, whether it be math or reading, for sure. But yeah, I've always felt that was such a huge barrier. So I would just kind of like tinker under the hood and try and, if I was master of the universe, I would just try and change as many things as possible during this time. But yeah, people definitely shouldn't be stuck at home, and um, it's hard. Yeah, I know that's kind of a shitty answer, but yeah, there you go. Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
I like the outdoor
Like,
thing.
it's not like school was good before this, like
Yeah.
it's not like,
Yeah, I agree. It was bad before and it's worse now. They found a way to make it
make
even
it
worse.
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
'cause
all I'm saying. Yeah.
dude, I'm telling you, like he was a good student. This guy over here, he was a good student.
We went to high school together. Yeah,
We did.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, we've known each other for a long time. But that
Yeah.
he was a good student. I was like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, kind of, I made grades for sports, and like, to me, I always thought, like, yeah, like outdoors, that's cool, you know what I mean? Like, and things like that. But if I was on Zoom, like, I would be, I don't know if I want to say, I'd be like high every day. Like, I would just be like, there's like, especially in high school. I don't know what age you teach, but like especially in like high school, like, there's no chance. I would have wasted a year. I would have just punted a year away. Like, it wouldn't have happened. Like, there's no,
I know.
but if I were to open it up, like, I just, like, honestly, like, I don't know, because it's like part of me is like, look, I'm a lot of what I say is kind of like, look, we kind of are where we are. You're going to sit around and wait for some vaccine that's going to be rushed anyways. Like, okay, sure. But like, also, how do you stop kids from like touching each other? You know what I mean? So I am curious on that, but like, there's got to be something. Like, you can't just, like you said, like in 1918, like they were able to do that. Like, we can't do something like that now. And
Yeah.
I would do it outside. It just would, on the school property. Like, why can't you do it on the school property?
Yeah.
I have to go on just one tangent rant really quick and wonder what your guys' thoughts are. I'm sure I've talked about this before, but just how the influenza virus, the flu, is in pretty much every category arguably much more deadly to children and to teenagers it's more infectious. Well, maybe not more infectious, but it kills kids every single year. And 3 years ago or whatever, we had a massive influenza year, like 80,000 dead. And no one ever, and
I don't remember it. Yeah, that's the
yeah,
thing.
no
I
one
don't
remembers
remember.
it.
Yeah.
We also, and I'm not saying anyone needs to follow me down this road, but I'm highly critical of the flu vaccine. I think it's largely a scam. I know, that's not a lot of people feel different ways about that. I can back it up with data. And so it's just, we're playing this weird game with the flu. And so, and now here's where it gets a little controversial and
Oh,
conspiratorial.
now, okay.
And yeah, where we're basically, we're if you look at the data and like influenza is way down, there is an overlap of the symptoms and what we count, and the testing is a lot of times very shoddy with how we count these numbers. And so a lot of people are saying that we're basically pushing back, like the flu will come back and it'll be mixed and muddled with COVID, on purpose or not, purposefully or not, and it'll just extend this pandemic like forever, basically until ad infinitum, basically. And it'll and the culture has shifted around it to where like maybe we should lock down because of the flu every year.
Yeah.
And I have beliefs on, I'm like kind of a nutrition guy, and I think if we were all taking vitamin D and other things, that like we could nip this in the bud, 9 times out of 10, as it stands. That's my rant anyway about that, how about the flu itself and how it pertains to schools and kids and teachers spreading it, and no one cared before.
Yeah,
So,
the rolling lockdowns thing is really scary. And
yes, that rolling lockdown.
yeah,
Like a
because
storm, like rolling thunder. Like, what a weird way to phrase that.
Yeah.
just that every time there's something goes wrong, that this is going to be seen as a legitimate policy, something that was a complete failure. I don't understand that. Did you see in the Bay Area transit, some sort of transportation authority was recommending and passed something around people working from home, that people were going to be expected to work from home for various companies for 60% of the time or something.
That's going to be a disaster.
So instead of building better public transportation, their answer to greenhouse gas emissions and limiting greenhouse gas emissions was to just have people stay home.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's
tight.
Sick. And it's like, I love giving away 40-50% of my money to be told to stay home, you know what I mean, rather than having it fund, like you said. Like I've relied for a long time on public transit, and it's like we could totally, the traffic in the Bay Area sucks, you know what I mean, like regardless, like. And so selfishly, when everyone stays at home, I work out in the road. It's been very nice that nobody's driving, but it's like, that's just the way we could have overhauled schools. We could have overhauled transit. You know what I mean? During all this could have been a total time to hit the reset button, and maybe it would have taken longer than this. You know what I mean? It wouldn't all be rolled out by now. But yeah, it's insane. Like I think VTA and BART and all that kind of stuff. Like they could, and other cities, like I know Portland has their own. They actually have a really nice public transit, but like other things like that. Like it should be a time in where we improve this infrastructure. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a lot of construction. Like, and that's the field I'm in. There's a lot of construction that is like ready to go. You know what I mean? Like that didn't really stop. Like it stopped for like 3 or 4 weeks, and like we could be doing this kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering, like you said, it's just a bunch of withholding of money and withholding of funds when we could be overhauling this and making it better for, say, if there's another sort of pandemic or something like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's funny. I do know people in construction industries and but administratively, right, where they're getting like bonuses, right, for working in this time, and then the laborers are like, what is that, kind of thing. And again, not blaming anyone for getting a bonus. I think it's great, but it just kind of shines a light on where we're at.
It's not labor. Great. I'm gonna hate on that. You shouldn't be. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, and I've profited from it. My company, we help out with the fires like a lot right now that have been happening in like Santa Cruz. And I know you wrote about it in your thing. Like these kids are at home, the house is filled with smoke and stuff too. Like sometimes it is. I can attest to that too. Like it's true. That's not just like hamming it up and stuff. Like it's very true. Like with all this stuff going on, like just real fast, I just wanted to know, like, I don't know, I don't want to give away too much information, but I assume you're California native, right? And and stuff, like what has it been like this year in 2020? Because we've had some crazy stuff happen. Like just with all, like, you can't even go outside, even though, like, I mean, it's fine, it's better now, but like couldn't even like go outside for a long time. Even just go for like a walk, like your sinuses will start dripping and stuff.
I know, it's so painful. The
bad.
smoke, it's really bad. I don't know. I'm worried for California. It's sad because it's a state with a lot of natural beauty. But it doesn't seem like things are going to improve soon. And the Democrats have had, trifecta control of the state government since 2011.
That's what I like to hear right here.
All the major cities are, Democrat governments. City governments, but
it's all the president's fault.
It is.
It's all coming. Yeah,
Gavin's hands
that's why
his hands are tied. Gavin simply can't do anything.
But the situation with the homelessness crisis is very sad. We have 12% of the country's population, 25% of the homeless population. Child poverty here is very high. Food insecurity is high, and this is where Central Valley is. So a ton of the country's, nuts, fruits, vegetables come from here, and yet people here don't necessarily have access to food.
Yeah.
It's really sad. We have multiple ecological crises going on with the fires, and then we have still dealing with the repercussions of the drought season a few years ago, because we're in process of draining all our aquifers, and all of that water is unregulated.
Yes.
So we have a situation where there's almond orchards and stuff in desert areas of the south of the Central Valley, where getting huge amounts of water from groundwater pumped over there for huge profits for those companies. And meanwhile, Central Valley residents are losing access to their own drinking water. So it's just it's very
it's dystopian.
Yeah, it's just there's no other word for it.
But as long as you put it like as long as you put like BLM or no hate, in your front yard of your $2.4 million Menlo Park home, we're good.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any coincidence that we have this extreme level of inequality and, like I said, ongoing major crises that are going completely unaddressed, and people are just living their lives like nothing's going on when everything's full of smoke and there's homeless encampments everywhere. And at the same time, like you said, people have BLM signs up everywhere and everyone is woke. It's not a coincidence that identity politics is really taking a place of a completely different type of politics that we should be having right now, given what we're up against.
Speaking our language.
No, it's 1000%. There is no like material gain to be made from like any of that. And I'm not like, hey, you want to put that sign in your front yard? That's cool. But it's like, you honestly just want people to go by your house and be like, yeah, thumbs up, man. That's that's really like what you want out of when you put that sign, when really like you said, what is it? You said 25% of the nation's homelessness. Like that's insane. I see it. It's terrible. Like it's like there's no freeway overpass that doesn't have homeless people.
I know, it's heartbreaking, and it's it's almost incomprehensible, the culture where we have affluent people in this state who are obsessed with social justice language, and yet the end point of that is just voting for more Democrats like Gavin Newsom and the mayors of these cities that cater to tech and developers.
The same politicians.
These problems.
Yeah, the same politicians, by the way, that when like a dude builds a bunch of tiny homes for LA's homeless population, they're like, nope, gotta take those out of there. It's like, what the fuck? It's
how dare you put a tomato plants on this concrete median that hasn't been used for, this is for Carl's Jr. bags, sir. How dare? No, it's nuts. Like I'm very critical of Gavin Newsom on here. I wouldn't imagine you're too big of a fan, honestly. But he ran on like woke stuff. That was his thing.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, hey, I'm pro gay marriage. And like, I remember back in the, what was that? Like mid-aughts or whatever, that he was like, I'm pro gay marriage. And everyone was like, that's our guy. And it's like, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely, I don't know.
It's not insignificant.
It's not insignificant at all. That's great. Cool. But then like he shills himself out to these private utility companies all the time, and he pretends that he can't put a stop to like basically these private utility companies burning down the entire state, because they are, and his hands are tied with everything. And then there's people that are like, yeah, should be president, honestly, like that's their we should give a guy like that needs a promotion. So I don't know, it's nuts. That's why, because when I see your tweets, I kind of relate to them. I'm like, man, a lot of people like I follow like on the left, they're not from like out here, and I'm just like, it's crazy, because like you put into words stuff that I'm thinking, but I'm just like, I don't have that like ability to put it into words. So it's really crazy.
It's like our guest appearance on that last thing, right? It's hard to understand the cynical support of identity politics in place of real material change. Not saying that that's not, good on its own right or anything, but just other people are like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with people? I'd love to be in California and a part of this whole thing, and it's like, it's really not what it seems from the outside. It's not this, it's very dystopian, and it's very strange. And it's hard to
3 jobs to pay your rent. You're an independent contractor at all 3. You get taxed for having 3 jobs and not getting enough. It's insane.
Big yikes.
It's insane.
Cool.
Well, Alex, I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's been great. And like, again, I kept you a little longer than I said. That's kind of that's kind of a scam that I run. And again,
well, I'm just at home, so it's fine.
You are, you are at home
in California.
Don't you have some job to be at? Anyways, so you can follow her. She's your Galaxy Brain, right? Is that your Twitter?
GALEXYBRANE.
Got it. Okay. So and that's going to be at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to put that there in the episode notes. I'm going to put a link to her article in the Bellows, which was great, and I recommend everybody read it. We referenced a lot of stuff to it on here.
It's great.
You feel free to come back anytime. You are the official first guest, so we'll mail the award.
I'm honored. Thank you.
We will mail the award to you.
Just your check will be in the mail.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll be by the mailbox.
1,000. Wait a couple days before you process. But anyways, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And you're welcome back anytime. And if next time Gavin Newsom messes up, I'll probably reach out to you. So
okay, I'll be watching.
So we're at Rare Candy Pod 1. I'm at Glenn Rockney. He's at Crypto Sci. She's at Galaxy Brain. And thanks again for listening, guys.
Bye-bye.